Allow me to reintroduce myself. I'm Dr. Tutt. Huh. T-U to the T-T. Maybe back then you used to know me. No, I just wanted to do a real episode, though, for real. Like, formally talking about what I do for work. I had a friend mention to me a few days ago that I really don't talk about my professional background, and I have a lot going on there. So let's share, shall we? So I mentioned a couple episodes ago that I did graduate with my doctorate in December. So before that, I went to undergrad and I graduated with a bachelor's in communication, applied speech communication to be specific, which basically covers all areas of communication from broadcasting as well as public speaking, inner communication, conflict resolution, those sorts of things. And I also got a minor in Spanish at that time. Then I went back to school because I got hired as a teacher, and there was a program where you get certified while you work. And I started out trying to get certified in English because my minor was Spanish, and to me it made sense. Well, I hated it. So I decided to go for history instead, which ironically in high school I really couldn't stand, but as an adult I loved it. So I got certified to be a teacher in secondary education in social studies. Social studies consists of not just history, but also economics, political science. There's all the different histories like geography, world history, Michigan state history, because that's where I'm from. And what else? Oh, methods, like teaching methods, how to teach social studies. So this test basically covered everything about life from the beginning up until now. So the test was extremely hard, and I had to take it 4 times. I ain't gonna lie, I did. It was very, very difficult, very detailed. It was obnoxious, the amount of information that I needed to know to pass that test. But thank God I did. Okay, so I got certified to be a teacher. Then I went back to school again. I didn't really go back because I was kind of enrolled at 2 universities at the same time. So I was enrolled at Ferris as well as Saginaw Valley at the same time. That's probably too much details. But anyways, I was enrolled in 2 universities at the same time, taking like 18 credits while I was also working full time, and it was a lot going on. Okay. But I got my master's, and that was in secondary education, and curriculum and instruction. That's what it was, curriculum and instruction. So I got my master's in curriculum and instruction, and when I finished that, like upon finishing that, you have to do, some type of a project, a thesis or whatever. So I did a capstone project, and that's where I developed an original leadership curriculum, which is based on the best practices for teaching leadership and civic education, and just overall public education standards, strategies that were the best practices at the time. That was back about 11, 12 years ago. So I did a lot of research to come up with the best elements for this leadership curriculum. There were about 10 best practices that I reviewed. I took the top 5 and I compiled them into one streamlined approach to be integrated into any content area or as a standalone leadership curriculum. So I've been teaching that original curriculum since about 2015. I piloted that program. Actually, I started teaching it before, like while I was doing the research for it at the same time. So I was kind of like writing and developing this curriculum while also teaching it at a summer program at one of the local universities here. Okay. University of Michigan. So then I did that for a couple summers, and then I piloted it at the school where I was working, which is a public school. And at that point, I'm just trying to see something right quick. Oh, sorry. Okay. So then at that point, I piloted it at this school where I was working, and I started out working with grades 5 through 8. And eventually I started doing some projects that incorporated some of the older students as well as some of the past students that I had in the college program that I was working for. I partnered with other organizations to do different events, different community organizations, as well as the ACLU. I did a lot of large scale community events, as well as at the same time, I was working at a community center for 7 years as a program manager, enrichment coordinator. Basically, I wrote the programs that we were doing, and I facilitated those programs in terms of hiring volunteers, recruiting students, writing portions of grants as well as grant reports, budgets, and then overseeing and managing those summer programs as well as the after school programs and 3 showcases throughout the year. The classes were like, there was after school tutoring, and then there were like a variety of performing arts type classes and some sports activities. So these teachers of these classes had to be recruited and hired and those sorts of things. And there were a couple classes that I taught of my own. Until I was able to get a teacher in place. I taught dance for quite a while, and I really enjoyed doing the showcases and different things there. And that was like a second job. So I taught high school during the day and then immediately went to the community center, and I worked there most evenings. I just didn't work on the weekends. Every now and then I did have to work on the weekend, but most of the time not. And so I was doing all of that while I was also in school. And then I was also married at the time, and I had 2 little boys back to back. So all of that was going on at the same time. Okay. Then after my master's finished, I went right back to school. I went to Saginaw Valley, and there I was going for my education specialist degree. And that is like where you kind of zoom out and you have a district perspective. So you're looking at what's going on in the school district. And then that was a focus in central office administration. But I also got certified as an administrator and to be a principal as well as superintendent with that degree. Do I want to be a principal or a superintendent? Not necessarily, but I was securing the backup plans. Okay. So I went to there, got that education specialist degree. And then after that, actually, let's talk about that real quick. To finish that program, you also have to do a large project. And my project in that program, all of these are, of course, based on research and stuff like that. You can't just be, outside of your neck throwing a slideshow together and talking about it. You got to actually know some stuff. Okay. So in that one, I did a focus on staff retention and what would I call it? Stress management, I guess. So I was focused on like what makes teachers quit, because there was a high turnaround rate in the field of teaching, and what strategies could we employ to make teachers want to stay. So I was focused on teacher retention and how to alleviate stress while at work. In that project, I did a lot of research around like mindfulness and different things like that, social emotional learning, trauma-informed education, different things like that. And so I compiled some best practices again together, but this time I was focused on teachers and how to make teachers enjoy their job more and have kind of like an outlet or a space where they can decompress whenever they get a chance between classes or on their lunch break or whatever. So we did that. So I was still at the same school, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity to work there. They allowed me to pilot and do a lot of different things. I had a lot of freedom to do a lot of things that would greatly impact our student body as well as our staff. So that happened. And then soon as I finished that, um, God told me to keep going. Go ahead and get this doctorate. That was not anything that I thought I was ever going to be doing. But when God tells me to do something, I do, much like making this video that I normally would not talk about. but so I went for my doctorate, and my doctorate is in educational leadership. And that is more of a global scale, like looking at what our country does in comparison to other countries, what's working, what's not, those sorts of things. There were a lot of different courses within that degree, lots of different courses, because it's like 2 years of coursework, and that's, that's like fall, winter, spring, back to back. And then also you have the exams, which are very stressful, and it's not really something that you can prepare for. You either are ready or you're not, that sort of thing. And then finally, there's the dissertation. And then after the dissertation, there's a defense presentation. Okay. So it was a lot of work. And by far, that degree, the most recent doctorate degree, is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. For real. Okay. I plan on breaking some things down with that, as far as like how I got through it, my study strategies, and some tips, as well as what you should know if you're even thinking about pursuing a degree like of that level. Okay. It's definitely not for everybody, and I am in no way trying to be a gatekeeper, not at all. So I plan to be fully transparent with you about my journey going through that process, as well as some things that you should know before you apply to be a part of that program, if you're thinking about that, and how to know if it's for you or if it's not. So stay tuned for that, because that won't be here. In this episode, really, I just wanted to give you a formal background, like basically run down the resume part of myself, because mostly on this channel, I talk about my spiritual evolution, my spiritual journey, spiritual growth, lessons, different things like that. But it all goes together, because as I've said so many times before in many episodes, I am spirit led. I don't do anything without God first telling me to do it. And, I got to eventually get over myself and go ahead and obey. And I know that it's always worth it if I do. Excuse me. So, what makes me qualified to be anybody's coach in personal development? Well, first of all, like I said, I've been teaching leadership for about at least 10, 11 years. Besides that, I've been a teacher, certified, in the classroom, that type of teacher, for 25 years. Alongside that, I've been a dance teacher, a dance coach. I'm in a sorority. I was in a lot of different organizations while I was younger, and even as an adult, where I needed to lead others. And, my personal experience, I had to lead myself through everything that I was doing. Now, it is also very, very important to mention that it wasn't like I was just going to work and then going to school and everything was la-di-da. Oh, no. No. As I just said, I was married. I had 2 small children. As I mentioned in a previous episode, my marriage was not, it started out okay, but it eventually became emotionally abusive. And that was a whole thing. And that was really hard, trying to balance that type of relationship while in school. I actually had a struggle with one of my classes because of that, and I had to retake a class, which I've never had to do before, in like never. There was one time in undergrad where I got meningitis, and my accounting teacher would not excuse my absences while I was in the hospital, which was ridiculous. But because that happened, I had to retake an accounting class. That was in undergrad though. While I was married, I had to retake an economics class, because the way that relationship was set up, I was not given the opportunity to do what I needed to do to meet deadlines and different things like that without interruption and without just some chaos going on and stuff like that. And it was very unpredictable what was going to happen. But definitely what I could guarantee was going to be some sabotage of some sort. So, there was also a lot of other things, which are kind of hard to talk about. But, aside from that, there was also an R word. We're not really supposed to say that word on YouTube. So the R word happened as an adult while I was in school. That happened 3 times over the course of my life, but the most recent, I was in school. And, just juggling all these different responsibilities at the time. One dynamic of my marriage was my ex was not working. And so that means that the weight of the financial responsibilities and everything kind of fell on me. So while going to school, I also had to work full time as a teacher and a part-time job at the community center, doing the best that I could to also be a great wife, a great mom, a great student, a great teacher, a great dance teacher, a great program manager, all of those things. Okay. So that's a lot. Juggling all those things, it was never about like external validation for me. It was about an inner calling to do what I was being led to do. So there are a lot of people that talk junk about people that have a lot of letters behind their name. Like, they trying to look for something. They trying to be important. They want people to recognize them. Yada, yada, yada. For me, it was none of those things. It was literally God paving the way and ordering my steps. Do this. Okay. Yes, sir. I am going right now. Here I go. Go to school again. Okay, here we go again. And so it was more so like that. It was one step behind the next. One step after the other. Like I said, I was not planning on going this far in school, but I did. Okay. And so one of the things about being a doctor of anything means that you're an expert. And you are really, I don't consider myself an expert because I'm committed to growth. I'm committed to learning. I'm always trying to learn something. And, that is what makes a great educator. Somebody that is committed to continuous learning and forever a student, never really looking at themselves as the end all be all, know all type of person or whatever. So, it's still an adjustment for me. Even answering my phone at work saying Dr. Tutt, when I pick up the phone, that's like a whole different thing. And then, even like just embracing the fact that I'm an expert in a lot of areas, specifically what I would say are my strongest areas of expertise. Definitely personal growth and development, definitely professional development, definitely service learning and community engagement. Those were all aspects of my specialization and focus while I was going in school with different projects and different, areas that I was really trying to hone in on and stuff. And, I learned a lot through the process. I learned a lot about me. I learned a lot about interacting and dealing and working with other people and just, how to do all those things, how to juggle responsibilities as well as overcome adversity at the same time, how to keep my feelings in my pocket and focus until I get the opportunity to process my feelings. So there's a lot of things that, I will be covering in future episodes related to that. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of my professional background so you know who's really talking to you and what qualifies me to do so. Okay. Now, I will say I'm still brand new at learning the podcast game. I'm not really, you know, if you've been following me at all for a while, you know that um, being on a video was like my biggest fear, probably about 5, 6 years ago or so. Literally trembling in front of the camera and stuff. But now, I've gotten a little bit more used to it, and I'm trying to just deliver messages as they come. And this channel is really all about my unfiltered truth, sharing transparently lessons that I've learned, tips that I have for particular topics and things like that. And just, how to go through and how to overcome different challenges and things like that, how to keep your esteem boosted and, not let others interfere with your self-concept or even, your self-awareness or different things like that as well. So I look forward to sharing more with you in the future, and I hope that this gives you a little background on me from a professional standpoint. I guess we should probably tap into, the other aspect. I have been having a business for a while. It's almost like I just assume everybody know that, but everybody don't. I've been having a business for a while, Unfiltered Truth, where I make custom crystal jewelry. And, you can order different ways. You can tell me what you want. If you know what you want, specifically, like I have different types of jewelry that's available on my website. You can tell me the type of jewelry you want. And then if you know specifically like what kind of stones you want, you can tell me that. If you don't know what kind of stones you want, you just know what kind of jewelry you want, you can just send me a picture and I'll create something for you. I can tell you what it consists of or not. That's up to you. Usually I do write something down just to let you know what you're wearing or whatever. As far as what the stones represent, I'm going to leave that to you. If you would like to look them up, they're all on Google. And also I make a lot of different things because I make like pet collars and waist beads and bracelets for men, women, kids, necklaces, earrings, different types of bracelets and stuff, like all kinds of stuff, rings and stuff, of course. So I make lots of different things. And if you don't see something that you would like on my website, unfilteredtruth.net, you can just shoot me an email at unfiltered.truth@yahoo. You can send me an instant message if you see me on Facebook or whatever. I do have a Facebook business page, Unfiltered Truth. You can shoot a message there. So if you know what you want, or if you don't know what you want, or if there's something that you want that's not on there, either way, I can assist you if that's what you like. I also do, like I mentioned right at the beginning, offer coaching services. So I can help you with identifying what are the areas that are kind of hindering you, or, subconscious blocks and limiting beliefs and things that are kind of holding you hostage, if you will. So that is kind of preventing you from growing. It's creating a sense of stagnancy and complacency in your life. And, if there's one thing that I know about, it's about that. It's about how we get in our own way with our thoughts, with our beliefs, fears, insecurities, doubts, all those things. And, and like breaking through those things so that we can actually achieve the goals that we set out for. There are so many times where people set goals, and then when they get really close, they're afraid to cross the finish line. They're afraid to do the last bit to cross over that finish line. And I promise you, I was just there again a few months ago when I was working on this dissertation this past summer. It was like You know, there's one thing to have a goal that's like so far ahead of you, and it's just like, okay, yeah, one day I'll get there, blah blah blah. But when you actually get there, there's something about it that kind of like, it can be, I don't know how to explain it really, but it's almost like it can be so big that it creates a fear, like imposter syndrome almost. You know, like, am I really qualified to do this? Am I really good enough to do this? Am I really smart enough to pass this test? Am I really whatever? So, you know, there's a lot of things, especially like, you know, when I was getting certified to teach social studies, and that test who was about to take me out. Actually, it did take me out a couple times, right? But you know, the first 3 times, you know, it was hard, and every time I thought I did good, I didn't pass. And so finally, that fourth time, when I tell you I went so hard, I was like, ain't no way. I'm not finna take this the fifth time. This the last time. I did every single thing I knew I could do. I wrote down so many notes. I reread and reread over those notes so many times. And I went to the library. I watched YouTube videos, turned the captions on, you know, pretty much wrote down almost everything that was on videos and read it over and over again. I did so much studying, flashcards, and, you know, just so many things trying to get through that test, because I did not want to disappoint myself or anybody else for that matter, you know, by failing a fourth time. So when I passed, oh my goodness, the relief was crazy. All right. And so when I finished this doctoral degree, it was very much the same. And it wasn't even the degree part of it as much as the dissertation part, because that part was really tripping me up for quite a while. And, you know, the other thing is, like, I was in this doctoral program for a really long time because there were some issues. There was COVID that happened. After COVID, there were some changes with staff, which then impacted the type of study I could do, because you got to have somebody at the university that has done the study that you're doing, or the type of study that you're doing, in order to be your your dissertation chair. So my dissertation chair ended up leaving the university. So I had to switch to a whole different thing. But you know what? It was all worth it, because what I eventually did my dissertation on is exactly what I wanted to focus on, more so than what I was planning on doing in the first place. So everything always works out. Now, another aspect to, like, juggling all these multiple things while also pursuing goals and, you know, staying focused, I shared so much about my spiritual journey. I shared about close friends that decided they wanted to paint me out as being some type of voodoo witch or whatever. I didn't even have time for that, y'all. Like, I didn't even have time to think negative thoughts about another person, because you know that little gif where the lady is like calculating something, and it's all these like formulas and stuff, like she looking up and it's like all these formulas just kind of floating in the air. That was literally me from like 2008 all the way up until 2024 December. Literally, like, I had no time to be thinking about anybody else, what anybody else had going on, trying to interfere with somebody else's life. Like, I ain't had time for all of that. I was trying to pass classes. I was trying to be a parent. I was trying to be a daughter. I was trying to be a teacher. I was trying to do all the things. Okay. So I didn't have time for nothing like that. Yet here it was for me to also juggle along with everything else. Okay. So, you know, while going to church, just trying to do the right thing, going to church, you know, twice a week, all of this was going on in the background. And, you know, of course, the Christian thing to do is to be quiet and go along to get along, which was very toxic, because nobody's talking about this ginormous elephant in the room called slander and gossip and divisiveness and things like that. Okay. So I knew what was going on. Other people knew what was going on. They were just not talking about it, not addressing it. Everybody's trying to act like it didn't happen, like nothing's going on. Almost like watching me to see if I'm gonna have some type of meltdown. No, because God lives inside of me and He got me. I'm not worried about it. So, we went through all of that, ended up changing churches and the whole nine and all of that. When I tell you I grew up in this church, so I've been going here for almost 40 years. To have all of that kind of disrupted right as I'm in the most stressful part of my program, right on the heels, like literally 3 days after burying my best friend. There was just so much going on, and through all of that, I had to keep my face together, put my feelings in my pocket, focus on the task at hand, lean into God and His understanding, because that was not me. And like, it was just a lot. It was a lot to deal with. So why am I saying that? Because if there's anything I know about, it is personal growth, personal development, professional development, spiritual growth, spiritual development, all of those things. That is like the epitome of who I am. Okay. And according to the University of Michigan, I am an expert. So my name is Dr. Tutt. And if you would like a coaching service with me, or if you would like to even just send me an email or something with a topic suggestion, you can drop a comment below, or you can email me at, like I said before, unfiltered.truth@yahoo.com. And I look forward to hearing from any of you that may have something a topic that you might want me to cover in future episodes, or even just sharing about, anything that we may have in common, that anything I've said that you resonate with, or what have you. So I will try to incorporate a little bit more of my professional side along these videos, and not just talk about one thing, because I guess for people that don't know me, it's kind of important, to know who's talking to you and why. So there's that. Okay.